Hello guys, good morning. Four of you are there. Okay. So we'll wait for 2 more minutes. Let everybody join.
Good morning, sir.
Morning. So we'll just recall whatever we saw till everybody comes, right? So if you can remember, right? So we saw last class something called as an ideal gas equation, right? And we even saw something called as Dalton's law of partial pressures, correct? Right. So what does Dalton's law of partial pressures says? What is statement for Dalton's law of partial pressures? Hello, Liz, are you there? Guys,
Sir, could you
are
repeat the
you?
question once?
Oh, okay. I asked, what is the statement of Dalton's law of partial pressures?
Total pressure in gaseous
Hmm,
mixture is equal to the sum of the partial pressures of the gaseous components in it.
that's it. Right. So total pressure in a gaseous mixture is equal to the sum of the individual partial pressures of all the gaseous components present in the mixture. Right. That's how it goes. And then say we can say that P total is equal to P1, P2, P3, P4, sum of that. Right. So this P1, P2, P3, P4, all these are the partial pressures of these components. Right. Okay. So then there is one more equation connecting partial pressure of a particular component with the total pressure. What is that formula? Say P1 and PT, how will you connect? Did you understand my question? I'm asking, I have partial pressure of component 1 that can be related to the total pressure by what equation? There was a formula which I gave you, right?
P of A equal to XA into PT.
That's it, sir. See, everybody has to remember, right? If you see this, I already told you this chapter is entirely about formulas. If you don't remember like it's very simple formulas. If you don't remember the formula, even the easiest of questions you will not be able to answer. Okay. So yeah, so P total, or I mean PA will be equal to P total into XA. Same way PB, that is partial pressure of D, will be equal to total pressure into the mole fraction of D. Right? Okay, so this is what we saw, and then we did some problems also last class, isn't it? So this is what we did, correct? Right? We did some problems on ideal gas equation. We did some problems on Dalton's law, right? Okay, so hope you remember that Saturday, I think it's 5 o'clock. You have a test on periodic table. I saw like I only graded the paper, so I have graded little moderate, not so easy, not so difficult. That's it, right? Okay, so we'll move on. I hope everybody has joined. Huh. Who's this keyboard lovers? Guys, any idea? Who's this keyboard lovers? Can you unmute yourself and speak? Who's this?
I think it's Mithun.
Mithun. Oh, okay. What about Bhavadarini, Divya, all these people? Why are they not joining? I saw so many classes. What happened to them? Bhavadarini, Divya, I think Shruti is here.
Yes, sir. I was absent
Ah,
for the last two classes.
okay. So now what about the other two girls? Bhavadarini, Shruti, Venisha is here. Venetia.
No, no, sir.
Venetia is not here. Okay, fine. I don't know what about all the other three girls. Cool. Fine. So we'll start. Right. So today we are going to see what exactly are ideal gases, right? So we saw ideal gas equation. We saw Boyle's law, Charles law, Gay-Lussac's law, Avogadro's law. We combined them to form ideal gas equation. All these things, right? So now this concept of ideal gas, right? This concept of what do you mean by an ideal gas is derived from a theory, right? Is derived from a theory. And indirectly I can say that all the other laws which you saw, that is Boyle's law, Charles law, all these things, right, are actually derived from this theory which I'm going to see now, right? So what is that theory? Theory is what is called as kinetic theory of gases, right? This is what you're going to study today, right? So this basically has a lot of assumptions, right? So they assume the gas molecules to behave like whatever they say, right? But in reality, not exactly, not all of them are true. Okay, and obviously that's why we say ideal gases. And I have something called as real gases. Real gases are the one which we see in reality, right? So after this, we'll see what are all the things you said here, right? And we can actually understand how wrong it is, right? And based on this only, all the other laws are given. So that's why we call them as ideal gases, right? So after this, what will we do is that we'll go for real gases, right? And we'll see how are they going to deviate, right? How is it that the real gas and the ideal gas is different, right? All these things we'll see today. Okay, fine. So we'll move on. So this kinetic theory of gases was proposed to understand the behavior of gases, but there are a lot of assumptions. Assumption in the sense, like they don't know whether it's true or not, but they just assume, they just thought that particular thing is true, right? Okay. So what and all are the assumptions? First one, right? First, what you have to understand is they assumed, or they say that the gas particles are going to be point masses. Are going to be point masses. What do you mean by point masses? Say, for example, I have a vessel, right? And in which they assume this vessel is closed and assume that there is some gas inside. Okay. So how do we generally represent? This is how you have been taught. I mean, taught means T-A-U-G-H-T, taught to represent the gases, right? This is how you represent. You just put dot 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 dot. That's how you put, right? This is how you represent the gas, correct? Right? So basically, this is what I say. Each and every gas particle is going to be a point mass. Very small. Say the radius of this particle is 0 point mass, right? So that's the first assumption, right? All gas particles are going to be point masses, right? Okay, fine. Second point, right? I will be able to get the second point from the first point itself. Now, what it says is that the volume, one second. Yeah, so the volume of individual gas molecules, right? The volume of individual gas molecules can be neglected, or it's negligible, is negligible when compared to the volume of the vessel. Okay, now look at the statement, right? So what they're telling here is the volume of individual gas molecules, right? I know that I just take one of the gas molecules. Say I take this gas molecule, right? So if I compare it with the whole volume of the vessel, right? Or I can even call this volume of vessel to be the entire volume of the gas. Can I call it this way? Correct? Is it not? Can I call it this way? Volume of the vessel
Yes, sir.
to be equal to the volume of the entire gas, not one molecule, the entire gas molecule. Obviously, we know whatever volume you are going to give to the gas, it is going to occupy that entire volume, isn't it? So I can either call volume of the vessel, or I can call it as the entire volume of the gas. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is, if I take any one gas molecule, that volume is so very less when compared to the entire volume that this particle volume can be neglected. That means the volume of gas particles can be thought to be zero. That's the point, right? So that's what I said, that the gas molecules are going to be point masses. We know what are point masses, which doesn't have any dimension. That's the point, right? So if I compare this particular point mass, which has zero, like I would say comparably, right, compared to the entire volume of the vessel or the volume of the entire gas molecule, one gas molecule's volume can be neglected. Yes. Any questions from this point? I assume that it is clear, right? Third point, what it says is that there are no interactions between gas molecules. What do you mean by no interaction, right? That means this interaction talks about the attractive and repulsive forces. Right? So this, what is this? The third point says that there are no interactions. There are no interactions between gas molecules, or in between two gas molecules. Say they are this molecule and the next molecule, right? There is no force of attraction. There is no force of repulsion. They are free to move. That's what it says, right? Okay, that's the third point. So first point is their point masses. Second point is regarding the volume of the entire, like volume of individual gas molecules with respect to the entire volume, right? And third point being, they say that there are no interactions between individual gas molecules. Okay, right? Cool. I'll move on. What are the other points? Guys, you don't have to. I don't know whether you're taking down notes. But if you're taking down notes, I would say it's not like whatever I'm writing, I have to copy it down because everything will be there in that book. Okay, fine. So next point being, so there are no force of attraction, volume is neglected, and yeah. So and we already know that the gas molecules are going to undergo some type of collisions, isn't it? Right, and that's the reason why, right? That's the reason why they exert pressure, is it not? Right. So obviously, when I talk about these collisions, there can be two types of collisions. What are they? Obviously, I know in between individual gas molecules, one gas molecule, another gas molecule can collide, right? And obviously, the what is it? And then the other type of collision can be collision between the gas molecule and the walls of the container. Correct? And with the walls of the container. So obviously, the force with which it exerts, that is the pressure, then divided by the area is what is the pressure. That all we already saw, right? So in physics, right, you will be studying. I don't know which chapter are you there in physics now? In school?
We are in work, energy, and power in physics.
Work, energy, and power. So did you see about collisions? Elastic collision. Did you do conservation of momentum?
Elastic, non-elastic collisions.
Yes,
You
sir,
did, right? Good. Right. So that's what I want to speak about now. Right. So what kinetic theory of gases says is that when the collision happens between two individual gas molecules, that collisions are perfectly elastic collisions. What do you mean by perfectly elastic collision, people? Since you have learned it, that's why I'm asking you. Any idea? What do you mean by perfectly elastic collisions? Tell me. You said it's there, right? You studied, right? Tell me, what do you mean by a perfectly elastic collision?
There'll be a rebound.
In every collision, there will be a rebound, right? So what it says is that, say I have two individual gas molecules. Okay. Say they are moving with velocity of v1 and the other one is moving with the velocity of v2. Okay. Right. So what happens is after they collide, as you said, there's going to be a rebound, right? So they're going to first collide and then they're going to come out, right? So now it's all about the velocity, right? So in a perfectly elastic collision, whatever the velocity with which I hit, right, that the same velocity with which I rebound also. So here the velocity is v1, here the velocity is v2. Okay, so what they say is that due to collisions, right, due to collisions, the velocity of the particles are not going to change. That's what they mean by perfectly elastic collisions. Okay, so the gas molecules individual gas molecules, when they undergo collision, it is going to be a perfectly elastic collision. So perfectly elastic collision means once they come with some velocity, they go back with the same velocity. Done, right? So that is about your perfectly elastic collisions. Okay, what are the other points? I think this is the last point, perfectly elastic. Anything else which I have to say? We spoke about. Yeah, so the last point is that the kinetic energy, right? The kinetic energy of individual gas molecules, or say the whole gas mixture, or not mixture, the entire gas particles, right, is going to be proportional to the temperature at which the gas is present. Right? Obviously, we understand that, right? Say now the gas is in 25 degrees Celsius, right? So obviously they'll be moving with some velocity, right? So now what happens? Now if I increase temperature, basically what I'm doing, I'm giving some extra energy. Heat is a form of energy, correct? So I'm giving extra energy to the individual gas molecules. So obviously they'll try to move faster, right? So obviously the kinetic energy, what is the kinetic energy formula? Half mv squared, isn't it? So obviously if I increase the velocity, right, so the kinetic energy also increases. That's what they say. So the kinetic energy is directly proportional to the temperature. As temperature increases, the kinetic energy of the individual molecules will increase, right? Okay, so I will be able to give you a formula for this. Okay, so obviously there's going to be a constant, there is a derivation, I can derive it, but again, it's not important for you. Nobody is going to ask you what is the derivation. It's very simple. So Ke, kinetic energy, is equal to 3 by 2 Kt. Very, 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 very simple formula, right? Kinetic energy is equal to 3 by 2 into K into T. I'll write K as Kb because K we generally use so many times. So this Kb is a name of a constant, just like how you have universal gas constant, right? Just like that, I have Kb. I'll give you the value of Kb. Right. So this Kb is what is called as your Boltzmann constant. Right. This Kb is what is called as your Boltzmann constant. Right. And its value. I forgot the value. Kb will be, I think, not sure, 1.38 into 10 to the power minus 23. Actually, I'll be able to derive the value. Not a big deal. So people, remember, right? So this Kb is actually related to the universal gas constant. Okay. So how is it related? I'll tell you. This Kb is equal to R divided by the Avogadro number. Okay, R divided by the Avogadro number. Avogadro number we know. R value we know. Right. So this K will be equal to R by Na. Right. R by Na will be, I think it will be, R should be in terms of now see, right, what is the value of R should I substitute here? You tell me. What is the value of R I should substitute in this equation to find the value of Kb?
$8.314.
Okay, correct. Do you have any justification for that?
Here we are involving temperature, sir.
Temperature, no. Even in PV is equal to nRT, I use temperature. There I use sometimes, I mean, most of the times I use 0.0821. Here, why am I using 8.314?
Here we are looking at energy.
That's the point, right? So we're talking about kinetic energy here. I told you, whenever you talk about energy, joules, right? At that time, you have to use the R value as 8.314, right? So this value will be 8.314 divided by 6.023 into 10 to the power 23, right? So can someone quickly calculate the value? 8.314 divided by 6.0 in a calculator. Can you tell me the value? Someone calculate it?
1.38 into
So
10
what
to
I
the power
told
of
was
minus
correct.
23.
So what I told was correct, right? So KB value is 1.38 and 10 to the power minus 23. Okay, right? Fine. Now please understand, people. This the kinetic energy 3/2 kBT. This is the kinetic energy for one gas molecule, right? This kinetic energy equation which we see here, right, is for one single gas particle. Okay, right? So, but if they ask you, what is the kinetic energy of 1 mole of O2 gas? See, please understand what I'm asking. I'm asking you, what is the kinetic energy of 1 mole of O2 gas? Then that time you should not, you can use this equation, but this is not the answer. This is not the last answer, because I told you this kinetic energy is equal to K3/2 Kb into T is for one gas molecule. And I know in 1 mole how many gas molecules I'll have, right? So fine. So anyway, you don't have to confuse yourself. I'm going to give you another formula, right? For n moles of a gas, right? For n moles of a gas, it's very simple. Ke is equal to 3/2 into n, where n is the number of moles, into R into T. Okay, or I can even, fine. So 3/2. So okay, fine. So please understand, 3/2 into Kb into T is for one gas molecule, right? So if I want to talk in terms of number of moles of, say, I have some amount of gas, and for that amount of gas, I have to find kinetic energy. So at that time, you'll be using R in terms of Kb. We know Kb and R are related, isn't it? Right? Okay. Now I can even have one more formula. They ask you, say, I have some 10 to the power of 10 oxygen molecules. Okay, I have 10 to the power of 10 oxygen molecules. Okay, find the kinetic energy of 10 to the power 10 gaseous molecules, the oxygen molecules. Right? So how will you do it? Tell me. I will keep a simple number. Okay, so I have 100 O2 molecules. Okay, I have 100 O2 molecules. How will you calculate the kinetic energy of all these 100 O2 molecules? Tell me. Looking at these two formulas, you can use any of them and do
So
it.
we can
Well, good.
find for kinetic energy of one molecule through the first formula and then
This one.
multiply it into 100. Yes, sir. Using that. And then we can
Correct.
multiply into 100.
Right, cool. So that's the thing, right? This is one molecule, so I can actually give a general idea for this, right? So how I can write this in better way is that this is for n moles. If it is 1 mole, n is equal to 1, 3/2 RT. This is for 1 mole of a gas. This is for n moles of a gas, right? Same way, that particular equation we saw is for one molecule. Say if I have some capital N number of molecules, you just multiply that by n. So I can have one more equation for your Ke, which is 3/2 into n. N is the number of particles here, right? N into Kb into T, right? So this N is number of particles. I told you that 100, that is that value, N, capital N. Okay. So if they ask you in terms of moles, use this value, use this equation. If they ask you in terms of number of particles, use use this equation, right? But if you don't want to remember two equations, you can always remember only one equation and remember the relationship between R and Kb. And obviously, between number of particles and number of moles, you have a connection. What is the connection? What is the formula for number of moles with respect to Avogadro number? Tell me. N, number of moles, and Avogadro number. What is the relationship? They have a formula, right? We have three formulas for number of moles. One in terms of mass, one in terms of number of particles, the other in terms of volume, right? So we already saw just now, like some classes back, we saw again how is it used in terms of mass. Now in terms of particles,
Number of particles by Avogadro number.
Correct, right? So if you do not remember the formula, just go by the logic or definition. What the definition says, at STP, right? At STP, standard temperature and pressure, right? 1 mole of any substance, 1 mole of any substance will have Avogadro number of particles, isn't it? So I can have a formula N is equal to given number of particles divided by the Avogadro number, right? So it's up to you. How do you want to go about the problem? But please remember, R you have to use when you have moles. Kb you have to use in terms of number of particles. This is what you need to remember. Nothing else. Okay, right? So these are the different assumptions or the points related to your kinetic theory of gases. Okay, right? Fine. So this is what we need to know, right? So now we'll continue, right? Actually, what happens is this chapter is little there and there, somewhere connected. Okay, so we can go with any flow which we want, right? Fine. Cool. So that's about the kinetic energy, the gases. Okay, right? So we talked about velocity, isn't it? Right? We talked about velocity of a gas. We say that if temperature is increased, right? Okay. Before all this, guys, did you look at this equation? Right? I wrote it's kinetic energy is equal to 3/2 kT or 3/2 RT. So you can understand that irrespective of whatever the mass of that particular gas particle is, right, it does not affect the kinetic energy values. Okay, it does not affect because I know kinetic energy is what, half mv squared. Both the mass as well as the velocity plays the role in deciding the kinetic energy, correct? But in the equation you saw, you just only saw temperature, nothing else, right? Why it happens is because of the derivation. Okay, I told you that there'll be a derivation by which I'll be able to get this equation. So in that derivation, the mass cancels out. Okay, so you don't have to worry, right? So when for example, if I say I have O2 gas, I have say 100 grams of O2 gas, 100 grams of O2 gas, number of moles will change, number of particles will change. Okay, anyways, right? But anyways, indirectly you will be able to include this, isn't it? Or I'll put it this way. Okay, how will I put it? Is I have say O2 gas, N2 gas, H2 gas, all three are there, right? And assume that there is one atom of all of them, right? For one atom, we should not say one molecule, right? One molecule of all of these. Okay, now you tell me, one molecule of all of these at a temperature of 25 degrees Celsius will have same kinetic energy or different kinetic energy?
Difference.
Why? think about it. Think about the equation we wrote, and think about the data I have given you, and tell me the answer.
So the number of particles will be different.
I told you, right? It's one molecule, each of them. One molecule of O2, one molecule of N2, one molecule of H2. And all of them are at 27 degrees Celsius. So will they have same kinetic energy or different kinetic energy?
They have different mass.
Different mass. Okay. So will it be same or different?
They have different mass, so it will be different, sir. The kinetic energy value will be different.
Okay, now please look at this. Okay, so if I write kinetic energy in terms of Boltzmann constant, 3/2 into N into Kb into T. Done. Okay, now look at this equation. Right. Now if you look at this equation, I have only two variables. What are the two variables? I can have different N values, right? Or I can have different temperatures. Only on these two, right? The kinetic energy depends, right? Now look at the state, look at the data I have given you. I told that all of them are, each one molecule are there, and all of them are at 27 degrees Celsius. So kinetic energies will be
It will be same, sir.
correct. You don't even have to think about it. I told you, like, see, I gave you the answer, then only I asked you the question, isn't it? I told you, irrespective of whatever the gas molecule is, right? If I have same number of molecules and at same temperature, all of them will have same kinetic energy. Okay, but if I have given you like this, I have 1 gram of each of them. If I have 1 gram of each of them, we'll actually take this as a problem. You do it. We'll see whether you answer this question. Okay. So again, I have O2 gas, N2 gas, H2 gas. I have 1 gram of each of them, right? Arrange them in the order of kinetic energies. They can be equal also. I don't know, right? But you tell me. Arrange them in the order of kinetic energies. Do it.
They have constant temperature, sir. All of them are
Okay, all of them are at 25 degrees Celsius. Yeah, all of them are at 25 degrees Celsius. Please do not calculate. Do not waste your time. Just look at the mathematics. You'll be able to tell the answer. This much time. Okay. Tell me, whoever is doing the problem, tell me how are you approaching this?
So we can use half mv square using that.
No. Please do not use that. Like, this is not physics, right? So all these half mv squared, all these things are already taken into the picture, and I have given you the final equation. Just use that. Do not go for, see, whenever, not only in, especially in chemistry, you will not be using mv squared because mass values Like you can see it's 1 gram and all that, but generally masses in chemistry are very negligible. We talk in terms of electrons, protons, neutrons, and all that. So generally we don't use mass as such, right? So please use either two equations. You can use R. You can use the kinetic energy equation in terms of R, or use the kinetic energy equation in terms of Kb. Either of that. Even if you use half mv square, what do you know?
Sir,
Do you
I'm
know what is the
getting
velocity?
different values, sir.
Sorry. You're getting different values. Okay, tell me. So which is greater, which is lesser?
Greater is O2, sir. Then N2, then H2.
Okay, we'll check that. Right. Fine, people. Right. I don't know. This should be very simple, and I don't know why are you finding it so difficult. Fine. So if I use my Ke in terms of R, I know 3/2 number of moles. N is there. R into T. No problem. Okay. So temperature is same. So nothing can be done about the temperature because all of them are same temperature. But the only thing which is going to vary here is the number of moles. Correct. So from this equation, I can easily say that kinetic energy will be directly proportional to the number of moles because all the other things are constant. 3/2 is constant, R is constant, T is constant, right? So whichever has the highest number of moles will have the highest kinetic energy. Correct. And I know number of moles is what? Given mass divided by molecular mass. Correct. Right. So I know given mass of all of the things are same. 1 gram, 1 gram, 1 gram. Right. So the only variable here is my molecular mass. Right. So I can indirectly say that kinetic energy is inversely proportional to the molecular mass of the gas. Now, why? How did I arrive at? Please look into it. Temperature is constant. 3/2 is constant. R is constant. So directly I can say that kinetic energy and number of moles are directly related, right? And I know number of moles is given mass by molecular mass, right? And the given mass in this situation is same 1 gram, 1 gram, 1 gram, right? So what is the only thing which is varying now? The molecular masses. So obviously the kinetic energy and the molecular mass in this case is going to be inversely related. So whichever has the highest molecular mass will have the lowest kinetic energy, right? So which has the high? So I know the molecular mass of O2 is 32 grams, molecular mass of N2 is 28 grams, molecular mass of H2 is 2 grams. So which is going to have the highest kinetic energy?
H2.
Hydrogen.
Correct. Right. So H2 is having the minimum molecular mass, so maximum kinetic energy. Then comes N2. Then comes O2. Any doubts? Any questions?
No, sir.
Right. So do not go for a half mv squared. Nothing. Very simple, right? What I did here, simple mathematics, right? Just use 3/2 RT, or I can even use 3/2. So in this case, if you use 3/2 kT, so in terms of number of particles, I speak 3/2 n into kb into t. If I speak, right? So you have to calculate the number of particles here. That's why I didn't use this. Okay. How will you can do this problem with this also? How will you do this problem? I can calculate the number of particles because I know first I'll calculate the number of moles. Okay, I'll calculate the number of moles. From number of moles, I can calculate what will be the number of particles, and I'll be able to tell the answer. Understood, right? So mostly, if they ask you in terms of mass, if they give you masses and ask you to compare, right, or moles directly, if I ask you to compare, please go for R. Okay, and if they ask you there are only one molecules or two in terms of number of particles, if they ask you the question, at that time go for Kb equation. Understood, right?
Yes, sir.
Cool. Right. So yeah. So I think now any question from this, blindly use it. Kinetic energy of a gas molecule. They ask only these two equations should come to your mind. Nothing else. Right. Cool. So we'll move on. Okay. So we'll just slightly deviate from the topic, right? what will we speak about is about the velocities of the gases. Okay, we're going to speak about velocities of the gases, right? Fine. So, see, how do I put it? Is say I have if in a vessel, I have a vessel in which I have some gas molecule in, I have some gas in that. So in that vessel, I'll have millions and millions of gas particles, isn't it? Right? I'll have so many dots, so many small gas molecules present there, right? So if I want to talk about the velocity of an individual gas molecule, right? The velocity of an individual gas molecule, it is highly impossible, right? It is highly impossible, right? So how will we speak then? How will we speak about the velocity? Is that there are three ways of looking at it, right? So first one is what we call as average velocity. We know how to take average, right? Say if I have n molecules of gases, right? So each of them will have some velocity, say v1, v2, v3, v4, up to vn, right? So obviously I know how to take average, sum of all the velocities divided by the number of molecules, correct? So this can be calculated as v1 plus v2, so on and so forth, by plus vn divided by the number of gas molecules present in that particular situation, right? But again, why we even took V average? Because we will not be able to calculate these individual velocities because they're very small, very fastly they are moving. It's impossible to determine the velocity of individual gas molecules, and that's why we came for V average, right? So the thing is, people, right? Again, there is a derivation for this, right? But again, it's not important to you. The formula I'm going to give you is only important. So there are going to be three types of velocities. There are going to be three types of velocities. One is V average, average velocity. Average velocity is equal to root of, one second, it's root of 2 RT by 8 RT by pi m. Yeah, correct. Right? So V average is root of 8 RT by pi m. Okay. So I know R in this case should be in terms of 8.314. Right? R should be 8.314. Temperature should be in Kelvin, and M is the molar mass. That is the molecular mass of the gas. And pi and R, and pi is constant. Pi is 3.14. Right? Okay. So though V average is root or entire root on 8 RT by pi m. That's the average velocity. Okay, fine. Next thing what I have is something called as RMS velocity. RMS is root mean squared, right? RMS is root mean squared velocity. Okay, see guys, I understand that just giving you formula is not really advisable, right? I can make it more interesting by giving you the derivations for all of them, but it will take a lot of time. Okay, and at least if at all it is going to be useful for you, yes, I would have definitely given it, but no one is going to ask you the derivation in school. Even for your competitive exams, like it is not required for you to know the derivations as such. Okay, so please bear with it. Okay, this chapter is like this. It's only formulas, and you have to remember the formulas. Is that okay? Right. Fine. So I have RMS velocity. RMS is root mean squared. I can actually do it. What do you mean by root mean squared? Right. So first thing what I have to do is I have to take the square of individual velocities. Right. I have to take the square of individual velocities. Okay. And so that's the first one, square S. Right. After that, I have to take the mean in the sense the average, not in this way, average velocity. Sorry. The average of the squares, right? And what I have, root. Then I have to take the entire root of them. So very simple. So first thing I'll do is squared. So V1 squared plus V2 squared plus V3 squared, so on and so forth, up to Vn squared. Then what I have to do? I have to take the mean, that is the average, divided by the number of particles, and what is left out? root. So on the numerator alone, you have a root.
So, sir, it won't be whole, sir. Like the
No,
denominator
like
won't
for
be.
n, no, for n we don't put root. No, because we
Okay,
are not
sir.
squaring it, right? Only for velocities we are squaring, so that's why we are putting a root over the
Okay,
numerator.
sir.
See, this has a lot of people confused with this. Lot of people, right? So they think like everything is under the root. No, it's only for the numerator. Okay, fine. So again, you don't have, obviously, we don't know the individual velocities. We don't know V1, V2, V3, so on. I don't know any of this, right? But again, I have a formula, right? What is the formula? It's equal to root of 3RT by N. Root of 3RT by N. Again, M is the molar mass, R should be 8.314, T is temperature in Kelvin. Very, very important. Right? So VRMS is equal to root of 3RT by M. Done? Okay. Can you do me a favor? Or wait. Do you have your book with you? Your 11th textbook, NCERT textbook with you?
Yes, sir.
If you don't mind, can you just switch on your video and show me what all are there in this book? Can you do that, or we'll do some other time?
1 minute, sir.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm just starting on the lesson, sir.
Just show the pages. That's it. I just want to see what all are there. Okay. Okay. Next page. Okay. 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 Next page. Next page. This is real gases. Okay. Next page. What is the isomers, isotones, Gay-Lussac's law? Again, next page. Do you see molecular velocities? So just check. Do you see molecular velocities? So whatever I say here now, VRMS, V average. I think you're unmuted. You have muted yourself.
This molecular speed is there, sir.
Molecular speeds are there. Kinetic theory of gases.
That's also there, sir, in the textbook.
Cool. That's what I wanted to know. Cool. Thank you. Do you have Maxwell's curve? Just check, Kana. Do we have
There's
they given
a
anything
graph.
like Maxwell? Show me the graph. 1 second. In the velocities, if you have any graph. No, not this. Not this. Okay, this is fine. Cool. Thank you, Rohan. Thank you so much. Right. So I will continue. Oh, yeah. So what
Sir,
I was
actually,
telling,
there's a graph, sir.
Can you show me?
Maxwell-Boltzmann distribution of speeds and graph is there.
Oh my God, do you have that?
I'm
Can you
not
just show
sure,
me that?
sir.
Show me. Ooh, okay. We do have that. Cool. Then I will teach you. Right. Thank you, Rohan. That's what I wanted to know. Okay, people. Right. So, fine. Thank God I didn't teach you the other velocities, right? Because there's one more velocity, but that can be spoken only when I know the curves which are given in your book. Okay. So we'll look into it, right? So, anyways, these two formulas are okay, right? The average velocity and the RMS velocity formula is okay. Anyways, like I'm going to give you one more formula, but that graph which you saw now, I'm going to explain it. Okay. What is the time? 7:52. No, the time will not be sufficient. Okay, actually, we'll stop with this today, right? So tomorrow's class, what will we do is, right, we'll actually teach you this Maxwell's, whatever the fancy words, curves, okay? So after that, we'll do some problems on that, right? Fine. Any doubts? Any doubts on periodic table you want to ask me, because you're going to write some test? You want to ask any doubts from periodic table or from the whatever we saw today? No doubts? Okay, then I'll ask you a question. Right. Suma, just to while away these 5 minutes. Let me see if you can remember. Right. This question might also come for your test. I don't know. Right. So tell me, when I have oxygen and sulfur, okay, I have oxygen and sulfur, which, sorry, which do you think will have high electron affinity, or I can even call it as electron gain enthalpy? Which will have? Do you understand my question? I'm asking which of these two will have a higher electron gain enthalpy? The first thing you have to remember is obviously what is electron gain enthalpy, then only you can answer this question, right?
Oxygen, sir.
Okay, fine. First of all, tell me what is electron gain enthalpy?
The actual textbook definition, sir.
I know, whatever you understand from electron gain enthalpy. If you can give me textbook definition, why not?
Sir, is it sulfur, sir?
Yeah, it is sulfur. Okay, fine. Before all this, before we decide what is higher and what is lesser, tell me what is electron gain enthalpy. So this is the situation.
The amount of
for
energy.
Okay, tell me. Tell
The
me.
amount of energy given out when taking an electron in.
Taking an electron out.
Electron in, accepting an
Means
electron.
accepting an
Accepting an
Okay,
electron.
okay. So how can I just put it? Put it is the energy change happening or energy change occurring when one electron is added to the valence shell of a gaseous atom. This is exactly how you define, right? First the thing is the atom should be in gaseous phase, right? And I'm going to add an electron to it. Where am I going to add the electron? To the valence shell of the atom, right? Obviously, there can be some energy released, or sometimes if it is very tough to add the electron, we have to supply energy. So you cannot generalize the energy released. We cannot say it like that. You can just tell that energy absorbed or released. You can tell it like that, or you can just tell energy change occurring when one electron is added to the valence shell of a gaseous isolated atom. Isolated in the sense only that atom is there. Okay, fine. So it's all about how easily I will be able to add electron here, isn't it? Right? More and more easily I'll be able to add electron, more and more will be the energy released. Isn't it? Right. So yes, so if that's the case, tell me in which of these two I will be able to add electron easily. So yeah, the answer was given. It was sulfur, right? Okay, why? So first thing, what about the electronegativity? Tell me, out of sulfur and oxygen, which is more electronegative?
Oxygen, sir.
Okay, fine. Oxygen is more electronegative. That means it has more capability to attract the shared pair of electron towards itself. That is okay, right? But still, sulfur is having more, I would say it is easier to add electron in sulfur rather than in oxygen. Why do you think like why is it happening like this?
Is it the size, sir? Size of the.
Okay, size.
The electronic configuration, sir.
Okay, electronic configuration, both of them have same, they belong to the same group. Valence electronic configuration is same.
Yes, sir.
Right. So electronic configuration, yeah, size indirectly, right? So what are you going to do with the size? So imagine the situation. Oxygen is small, sulfur is little big. So I'm going to add an electron.
There's more
Telling
space to add electron in sulfur, so it's easier.
space, or okay, I'll give you one last chance. Anybody wants to answer, or I will answer. Any one last chance. Anybody? Try a guess. Anything. So that's what you said. Space is definitely not the answer.
So does it depend on number of shells?
No. Okay. So the answer is it is going to depend on the amount of repulsion that incoming electron faces. That's the answer. So obviously, I have oxygen to be a very small atom, and there are so many electrons in this small space itself. So the incoming electron will face a lot of repulsion, right? But in sulfur, it is little bigger, and some number of electrons are there. So the incoming electron will not face much repulsion by the existing electron. Okay, so that is why in sulfur it is easier to add an electron, even though oxygen is more electronegative. Because of its inter-electronic repulsions, it is little tough to add an electron in oxygen. Same example I can give you in fluorine and chlorine also, if you can remember, right? So even though fluorine is the most electronegative element, chlorine will have more electronic enthalpy. For the same reason, adding an electron to fluorine will have more inter-electronic repulsions, but in chlorine it is little easier, even though fluorine is even though fluorine is more electronegative. Right? I told you this exactly when I taught you periodic table. Right? So anyway, guys, this is how questions will be. Be very careful. Okay? Right? So yeah, so all the best. Prepare well. We'll see, I think, on Monday. Right? Fine. Thank you. Thank you so much. Any other
Thank
questions
you,
you have,
sir.
you can ask me, or we can leave. Okay, fine. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.